Hey, what's up? Hello. My name is Matt, with me is Dylan, and this is Fantasy Filmball. And today we're going to be giving you guys a rundown. Actually, I'm going to be giving you guys a rundown because I'm also giving Dylan a rundown of the short film categories. How do you predict these? What should you predict? Do you just go off of Gold Derby and hope that they get some right? Or is there anything you can glean from someone who has watched almost all of them? I've seen 44 out of 45 of the nominated short films.
Impressive.
So, yeah, the only one that I can't find is one of the documentaries. But I like to see these in advance because I like to... and here's the thing. This sometimes shoots me in the foot because sometimes I see a film and I go, oh, no way will that get nominated. Even though Gold Derby thinks it'll get nominated, no way will that get nominated. So I don't predict it, and then I get shot in the foot. So I'm going to try to give you some insight about each of these films and let you decide which ones will get nominated. And I'll kind of give you my top 5 in each category. And yeah, hopefully that means something coming from someone who has seen these films and knows what they are for the most part. So let's dive in. We're going to go with one of my favorite categories, animated short film. The reason this is like my favorite category is because I think that this is where some of the most interesting winners and nominees come from every single year. I did a binge like a long time ago where I watched every single winning animated short film from the 30s all the way until now. So I've seen all of these. I love this category. I think that a lot of the best films that get nominated for Oscars are nominated right here. And if you're not onto the animated short films, get onto those animated short films. They are so much goddamn fun, especially beyond all the Pixars that get nominated every single year. Mm-hmm. So a little breakdown of this category. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. I'm going to say right now that there are going to be some films that I'm going to say, wow, this feels way too weird, way too experimental for a nomination. But sometimes those types of movies get nominated. A couple years ago, there was a movie called Blind Facia, which when I watched it before nominations, I was like, there's no way that gets nominated. This is the last place thing in the top 10. And yeah, it didn't happen. Or there was a movie called Yes People that happened a few years ago where I watched it and I was like, wow, the only thing that happens in this movie is people say yes to different things. And we go through a day where the only line of dialogue is people saying yeah over and over. That got nominated. Yeah. I never thought that would get nominated.
I remember, I don't remember how long ago it was. There was one that was called Bestia that everyone was saying no, no, no. And then I think I picked it just to be different. And then it got in.
No, so I did have that predicted last year because I saw the film and I was like, yeah, that makes sense for it to be nominated here. Mm-hmm. But here's the other thing. Like, this is a category that is often dominated by Pixar, by Disney, by Netflix. Those films don't always get in. Last year, there was a Disney short film called Us Again. Did not get nominated. So you can't rely on the big films or the name recognition to get by here. This really is a category it's all about the quality of the film. This year there's no Disney or Pixar movies, so there's not going to be something that's like over predicted. But there is an Apple movie. But first off, let's start off with a tier that I like to call "This is definitely not happening unless it does," in which case I will be dead wrong. And that is, first off, absolutely not happening, The Debutante. This is a hand-drawn pencil sketch short film. It's very erratic, very hard to see what's going on. It's very interesting, though. It's the story of a young upper-class woman who is being trained to go to a debutante ball, and she desperately does not want to, and she's trying to get out of it, and she meets a hyena, and the hyena can change into a person, and she brings the hyena along to this debutante ball and causes chaos, and that's the film. It's not happening. It's very weird, super oddball. It's a fun film, but this would be one of the weirdest choices that they've ever done in this category. Then, also definitely not happening, we've got The Garbage Man. This is a Brazilian film. It uses real recordings of a family talking about their deceased patriarch. The grandfather of the director, I believe, was a garbage man in a different country. And the family just gathers together and they speak about this person and what he meant to them, and they tell the stories of his life. It's also done with like sort of rough pencil sketches. It's interesting visually, but ultimately I don't think that there's enough to grab onto here for it to be a nomination. Then we've got More Than I Want to Remember, which is the director of the film is telling her own story. She's narrating it and drawing the story as it goes on. Visually, it's incredibly intriguing. It tells an important story of a refugee traveling across the world, but and escaping war. But ultimately, I just don't think that I think that there are more creative films. I guess when it comes down to it, we've been there, done that with this type of film. Mm-hmm. I guess it could get nominated based on that. We have seen nominees like this in the past, but there's nothing really new that this is offering.
Okay. That one kind of seems likely to me, at least just solely based on your description, but I also, like you said, it could, like you're saying, it's not as stylized, and maybe it could be one that misses.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, again, anything can happen here. I'm saying based on what I've seen, it doesn't feel like they'd go for it, because I've seen in previous years films that feel like this that have missed because they feel like they've just been there, done that. Okay. But ultimately, maybe it could happen. So I'm not gonna. I'll take that out of this category and say, maybe that could happen, and I'll just maintain the Debutante and the Garbage Man not happening. Here's the next category that I'm gonna go into, which is probably not, but who knows? And the first one that I'm going to talk about here is Steakhouse. Steakhouse is I think it's a Czechoslovakian film. I can't remember exactly, but the film starts off and it's this woman, she's at work and they celebrate her birthday. And then we see her husband at home making a steak dinner. And she's not home on time and he lets the steak burn. And the apartment fills with smoke, and she comes home and the smoke alarm's going off and he's sitting at the table and the steak is still charred black on the stove, and they begin to argue. And it's a film about a toxic relationship, and then it becomes really, really twisted and really fucked up and really gross when he accidentally cuts off his tongue as he's eating the charred steak. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but this film had me squirming. Not in a good way, but ultimately it has shock factor. It's going to stick with people, which is what Bestia did last year. Bestia was a film that was a short film where it literally had it was all about fascism, and it had a moment where the main character let her dog go down on her. This has some similar moments of like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? And that's why Steakhouse is possible. But ultimately, it's a very cold film. It's very alienating. And I don't see it making it over some of the warmer films that come after this. So okay. I don't have Steakhouse here. Then there's Passenger. This is an Argentinian film. It's incredibly well animated, which is the entire argument behind it. It's about a man who is on a train, and he meets the other passengers and sort of imagines what they're all like. But it's animated with paper. It's stop motion animation. And basically each of these characters are like little paper models. They look like they've been origami folded into people. And each of them has kind of like a distinct personality visually how they look. It is a really stunning film to look at. Ultimately, that's the entire argument behind why it could possibly get in. Because it looks like something you've never seen before. Then at number 10... Save Ralph. This is a film which I believe is probably like number 2 or number 3.
It's number 3 right now.
It's number 3 on Gold Derby. It should not be number 3. The entire reason this is number 3 is because Taika Waititi is in this movie. This is basically the Pixar short of the year, is what I'm going to say. And the reason I say it's the Pixar short of the year, or the Disney short of the year, is it's going to be the one that people are predicting exclusively based on the fact that, hey, I know someone who's a part of this. Save Ralph is a very sweet film, but it's a PSA. I wouldn't even say this is a short film. This is a TV commercial for for an animal rights group. I can't remember if it's the American Humane Society or PETA. I don't think it's PETA, but it's a short film about a test rabbit played by Taika Waititi, who talks about how much he loves his life as a test rabbit, where he gets poisoned by makeup and medicine and then dies painfully. A lot of people really love this film, but it is a 2.5-minute PSA. It is a commercial. It is not a short film, and I don't think that the branch will fall for it. That's why, but again, it's possible. Maybe they're just like, wow, I love Taika Waititi. Let's vote for this. Ultimately, I don't see them going for that. And it feels like a few years ago there was a LGBT film that topped Gold Derby's predictions. I can't remember the name of the short film, but everyone thought it was getting in because it was like, wow, this is like something that we've seen and we've heard about, and it hits themes that seem really relevant, and then it didn't get in. And this feels like that to me. Or this feels like Us Again last year, where it's like, this is a big film, it could make it, and it doesn't. So I'm going to say take Save Ralph out of your predictions. Number 9, I've got Sierra. This is a surreal film about toxic masculinity. It's a film where a young boy and his father drive a race car, and then the tire of the car pops, and the child becomes the tire to basically be what his dad wants him to be. It's funny. It's unique. It looks different. It has an art style that reminds me of like Untitled Goose Game. But overall, I think it's a little too oddball to make it, but it still has a chance because it's unique. We've never seen something like this before. Then I've got The Flying Sailor. This is a Canadian film. It is a National Film Board film. They get nominated all the time. All the time. National Film Board is like one of the most nominated beyond Walt Disney. It's the National Film Board of Canada in this category. But that said, I don't think that this film really has a ton of reasons why this would be a nomination. It's a film about the Halifax explosion, which is one of the biggest explosions in all of recorded history. It's about one person in particular who was a sailor who was on the harbor when this boat exploded, and he ended up flying through the air and landing like 2 miles away and living. And he was butt naked when he woke up. And so that's the film follows this character as he's flying through the air and his life flashes before his eyes. Then we got the category called This Seems Like It Could Be Fighting for the 5th slot. This seems pretty likely. But I just don't know which one of these to pick. So of these 3, we've got My Year of Dicks. My Year of Dicks is a film I wasn't too fond of, but I could see why a lot of people would be. It's stylistically all over the place. It is about 3 different segments of a young woman talking about the year in which she was desperate to lose her virginity. And she tells the story of the different teenage boys that she was trying to hook up with, also as a teenager at the time, and how each of them was just a bad dude in general. And for each of these, the art style switches to something else. So, you've got different art styles that kind of dictate. It goes from like an anime style to like a very sketchy hand-drawn style and rotoscope. It's creative, it's fun, but ultimately, I think it might be a little too edgy for the Oscars. Then, almost in my top 5, we've got An Ostrich Told Me That the World is Fake, and I Think I Believe It. This is a stop-motion film. It's from Australia. Interesting thing about this is that the stop-motion film here is referencing that it is a stop-motion film. We see the entire film taking place as animators move everything around. We see the animators moving during this. And it's the story of a man who works in an office who starts to believe that the world around him is fake, and he starts to see that he can take his face off, and he sees the lights outside and everything. The world just seems fake to him. There's green screens around, and then an ostrich tells him the world is fake, and he kind of snaps out of the simulation. It's like The Matrix in a comedy short film. It's creative, it's unique, it's clever and a little funny and absurd, and that's why it's fighting for this last slot in the nominees. Then, at number 5, Black Slide. This is a film from Israel. It's a really touching story. It is the best animated film here. If we're just talking purely animation, it's a stop-motion film that looks absolutely stunning. This looks like one of the most high-budget animated shorts you could possibly imagine. But it's the story of two kids who sneak into the tallest water slide in the park when they're too short to ride it. And meanwhile, one of the kids, it's intercutting a story with him going home at the end of the day and dealing with the fact that his mother is incredibly sick. And so it's a story about conquering fears, incredibly well animated, and that's why I have it at my number 5 slot right here. Then we've got the next 4, which I think I'm going to say all of these are my safe picks. So the first one is It's Nice in Here. This is a film, I think it's Norway that it's from. It's a film about police violence, police brutality, and I hate this film because here's what this movie does. It's a film about a police officer shooting a young black teenager. But the film tells you both sides of the story. It tells you the story from his side, and it tells you the story from the officer's side. And it intercuts the two to be like, the officer was just trying to do the right thing, and like the kid was like, he was just minding his own business. And ultimately, personally, I think it's absolutely despicable that we're telling this story through this lens. It would be a terrible nominee, but it feels like the type of nominee that the Oscars would go for. And that's why I've got it in here. I would hate this being nominated, but it feels like it's a topical subject. It is well animated, and it seeks to tug on the heartstrings, and it probably will tug on the heartstrings of some people that are a little bit less woke, I guess. I don't know. It really feels like a nomination to me. Then we've got Ice Merchants. This is a stunning short film about a father and son who live on a mountaintop. It's a fantasy story about the love between a father and child. I don't want to say too much more, but its animation quality is incredible. The story is moving. The music is great. This feels like a nomination. But also, at the same time, it doesn't have any social issues to fall back on. It doesn't have anything to really, guarantee a nomination for it. So this might be a bit more shaky. Then we've got the Apple TV Plus movie, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. This is a kid's movie. It is a story of a boy who's wandering through the snow alone, and he meets a mole, and then he meets a fox, and then he meets a horse, and they say some inspirational quotes. It's beautifully animated. It has the platform of Apple TV Plus, but that doesn't always mean anything because Netflix can miss and Disney can miss, so why can't Apple miss? But at the same time, this is an impactful short film. It's beautifully drawn in watercolor. I believe that the story that they've told is that they painted it in watercolor and they used the water of their tears to draw the film, which is so fucking funny to me. But it's a sweet kids movie. And sometimes that's just all this branch needs right here. And my winner, the only one that I think is absolutely guaranteed for a nomination, this is New Moon. Coleman Domingo wrote this film. It's based on his one-man play. It's based on his childhood. And it tells a small story of a moment that him and his mother bonded over a new moon and over what a new moon represents. A new moon represents a change of tides, possibly more fortunes coming your way. And it's just this moment that he shared with his mother. And it's beautifully animated, and he narrates the whole film as though he's on stage telling it to us. This is the winner, right here. I've never seen an animated short and just gone, okay, easy win, like I have with this. So, lock in New Moon. Where's New Moon on Gold Derby?
It's currently number 2.
Yeah, and is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, yes, and the Horse number 1?
Correct.
Okay, so New Moon should absolutely be number 1, and Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse is number 2.
However, some of your other picks are in some very interesting spots, like Ice Merchant is 66 to 1 odds.
Interesting. It could miss, but it feels pretty undeniable in terms of craft, and it feels like a lot of the previous winners in the category.
More Than I Want to Remember is 100 to 1 odds. One of 3 movies that have that.
Well, that one was one of the ones that I said I don't think has any chance.
I thought that was one that you were talking about where it had like the super high budget and.
No, Black Slide I think has 100 to 1.
Okay, that is 100 to 1 as well.
Yeah.
And Steakhouse is the other 100 to 1. And then the other one I was going to comment on was It's Nice in Here is at 44 to 1. Gold Derby currently has
That's interesting.
The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, New Moon, Save Ralph, My Year of Dicks, and Flying Sailors.
Okay, I can see why that's the top 5, but I think Gold Derby is going to go 2 or 3 out of 5 on this one.
I currently have a 3 from your bunch I have and I'm deciding between the other spots. I have New Moon, I have The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and I think I have It's Nice in Here as the 3. And
that makes sense.
I think I'm leaning My Year of Dicks at 4 just because you said of how they play with different art styles. And I think that could also help its case in here. And then the last spot I'm deciding between My Flying Sailor, or the Flying Sailor, as you mentioned, is based on a very historical and very well-known event, and then the Ostrich one, just because your description of it made it sound very different, and by being different could get a lot of votes. So I think I'll put the Ostrich in for the moment, but then maybe revisit when we get a little closer to nomination morning.
I'm going to swap out Black Slide for An Ostrich Told Me That the World is Fake, and I think I believe it. So my top 5, I'm going to say New Moon, Boy the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, Ice Merchants, It's Nice in Here, and An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake, and I think I believe it. I think I can get at least 3 out of 5 here, possibly 4 out of 5. I don't think I'll get 5 out of 5.
What's your normal track record here for animated short for everyone out there?
I go between 3 or 4 usually.
Okay. Well, for everyone
with
out there
all
who
the shorts categories,
who may be tuning in that does not know very much about these categories, like myself, we have an expert right here who consistently gets high numbers. So if you're looking to win your Gold Derby leagues or get some extra bragging rights on some other people around you, saying, hey, I got the short categories right, this is your man. Yeah. So definitely tune in next time when we go over some documentaries and some live action shorts. But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is Fantasy Filmball.